Okay, welcome back, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about inclusive and accessible web design. So, in the last video, and if you haven't watched the last video, go back and watch the HTML, CSS, and browser video before you watch this one. We talked about how and what is needed to render a website, display a website, right? And so today we're talking about Uh, sorry, for whatever reason, I was super worried that my audio wasn't working. Anyways, today we're going to talk about an absolutely crucial aspect of web design and web development. And this is going to matter whether you are some sort of full stack developer or if you are like just updating a simple website. You know what? Actually, I'm going to roll that completely back. This is important regardless of whatever position you find yourselves in, technical or not. Okay? Web accessibility is about making sure that websites and web applications are usable by everyone, regardless of their abilities or their disabilities. Okay? Web accessibility means that people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web. Like at the jump, at the first go, there's not some sort of accommodation that has to be requested. It just already works, right? Now, in simpler terms, that just means that websites should be designed in a way that allows people with all abilities to access and use them effectively. Okay? Now, there's a couple of things about web accessibility. Okay. It's going to cover visual elements. Okay. So this is a lecture video with some visual elements. We're looking at a PowerPoint presentation. You're listening to me, so there's some auditory components. If you are following along with us, you're having some motor components in there. And as you're kind of thinking through this material, you're integrating some cognitive elements. And if you are a user that may need the help of an assistive device, then I want to make sure that whatever I create is going to work for you. And this idea of accessibility is critical regardless. It's essential. The slide says it's essential for inclusive design. What that means is inclusive design is creating things with all different ability levels in mind. You're not having to go back and add something or other for this particular set of people or another set of people who may use some sort of device or may have some sort of um, impairment in some way. These impairments are not bad. They make you who you are. And inclusive design says, you know what? I'm going to meet you where you are. Now, of course, when we say web accessibility, there's some things that come along with that that make things a little more complicated. Okay? First of all, there are some legal requirements. So when you're creating websites or any sort of mass content for like I should say content for mass consumption, there's this understanding that you are designing this so that it's compliant with the laws that were advocated for by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And this compliance legislation is mandatory in a lot of states, a lot of regions. And not being compliant can result in legal action or legal penalties. And that sounds very serious. And you know what? Maybe it is, but I'd rather look at it from a different angle. Aside from the legality of it, okay? So not even thinking about the legal stuff. It's the right thing to do. There's an ethical and moral responsibility to ensuring that everyone has equal access to information. I think that's foundational, you know? Everyone deserves equal access to information and equal access to opportunities, whether it's online or offline. Now, another thing to think about is when you design things accessibly, you're going to cater to a broader audience. You're going to reach all individuals and you're going to improve the user experience for everyone. Creating an accessible website is not just for those who may have a disability. Creating an accessible website creates a good experience for any user, regardless of ability level. So going back up to this ethical responsibility, it's the right thing to do. Okay. Now, there's a couple of problems that are consistent. Okay. So when we're thinking about web developers, people who are typing the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever else, they're sometimes going to overlook some things. Number one, color contrast. Okay. Inac Inadequate color contrast or colors that aren't contrasting enough, it's going to make it difficult for people with some sort of vision impairment to read the text. Think of someone with some sort of color blindness. If they're not able to differentiate the background from the text color, they're missing out on that information. And so a way to prevent this is to make sure that you use sufficient color contrast. And you may ask yourself, well, how do I know that? I'm going to show you a tool for this. Okay. And I just want to say for the record, all of this stuff applies beyond websites. Color contrast should be something that you think about when you're designing just about anything, whether it's online stuff or even printed out stuff. Okay. Now, the next one is a little less applicable when we start talking about extending and transcending beyond the modality of online. Screen reader compatibility. Websites must be able to be compatible with, work with screen readers. So screen readers are assistive devices that help our blind or low vision low vision users. And it's going to read those tags that we talked about in the previous video. So remember when I said H1 tag denotes the first level heading. Well, that's going to, like, think about when you are writing an outline for an English class or something. Those Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3, those are your main points, right? A screen reader looks for those tags. Where's my heading ones? Where's my heading 2? Where's my heading 3? And this is essential because let's think about what a screen reader does. A screen reader gives gives that user the ability to navigate the website in an auditory fashion, right? I'm a big audiobook lover, and I want to be able to control the speed at which the narrator is reading to me. I want to be able to hop back and forth. Maybe I wasn't paying attention and I need to go back and listen to a couple of minutes again, just for a good time. Well, screen readers leverage those tags, those heading tags, and a lot of those other HTML tags to allow the user using this assistive device to navigate through the website. So if your website isn't built in an accessible fashion, so it doesn't have those tags, a person who is coming to your website and navigating it using a screen reader, they would have to listen to that whole website every single time. And just think about that experience and how really uninclusive it is. That's saying, you know what, I didn't think it mattered that much. Well, I am here to tell you it very much matters that much. Okay. Now, similarly, keyboard navigation. So screen readers use tags to hop back and forth. So maybe a user wants to go to the third heading. They can skip all of the stuff and jump right to that third heading. Keyboard navigation is your ability to navigate a website without the use of a mouse or a trackpad or anything like that. So, a lot of people that may have some motor skill impairments, they use different keyboards to navigate the webs or navigate anything, everything. And so let's say that some of your elements are not formatted in a way where a user can kind of tab through, tab, 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 tab. Maybe they're jumping all over the place. Maybe the first tab is up at the very top of the website, and the second tab takes them all the way down the bottom. Well, that's not usable. That's not user friendly. That's not inclusive. It's definitely not accessible. So we have to be very mindful about color, about accessibility tags, about keyboard navigation. So we can ensure that everyone has a good and consistent user experience. Okay. So I hinted to this earlier. There's a couple of things online that we can use to make sure that the content we're creating is accessible to other people. Here's a couple on your screen now. We have the WAVE, which is the Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. It's a browser extension, as is most of these. And a browser extension, I'll show you in just a second, is just a shortcut to a tool. Think of it like a bookmark, right? You like a website and you visit it frequently and you don't want to type in the URL, you can bookmark it. So you just hop over to that website again. In the same vein, a browser extension is something that's built into one of your browsers. So again, a browser is, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, those types of things. And it provides feedback on accessibility issues. So wait a minute, hold on. This website is not optimally accessible. And it'll show you what the issue is, and then you can correct it. Axe and Lighthouse are all similar, and we'll look at a couple here in just a second. So there's tools for this. There's even tools for checking your Word documents, your PowerPoint files, your PDFs. You are able to check the accessibility of anything, and you should, or I want to encourage you to. So I want to keep this short because why accessibility matters is because it's the right thing to do. In this class, we're hoping that you become an enlightened digital citizen. You'll hear us talk about that a lot. You'll hear us say those words a lot. But it's like a moral obligation. Everyone deserves equal access to information and services. Everyone deserves to be able to use that information, interact with that information. And even beyond what we feel is the moral obligation to create accessible content, creating accessible content means that you've been thoughtful in how you're putting information together. You've been thoughtful about how you want users to navigate something. And this thoughtfulness translates into a better user experience for all users. Now, there's one last note on here. Admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of it. It says, companies that prioritize accessibility are seen as more inclusive and socially responsible. Okay, maybe. I'm sure that's true, for sure. But regardless of Well, I'm just going to say this. Sometimes I'll tell my class, like, this is not part of the course content. It's what I call a Chelsea hot take. And this is one of them. Don't make your stuff accessible for reputation's sake. Make your stuff accessible because it's the right thing to do. Okay. So again, web accessibility ensures that websites are usable by everyone. Sometimes there's some legal things that come into play. There's tools that help you test your website's accessibility, and designing accessible content leads to a better experience. Period. Full stop. So let's look at some of these tools. Okay. Wave was referenced on our presentation slides. And so this is just that wave.webaim.org. And you'll notice that I have WebAIM over here as well. Now, WebAIM accessibility in mind, you are able to search for any website. And you're able to use this color contrast checker. And it will tell you, okay, if I have this color for the foreground, so like your text color, and you have white for your background, then it has a color contrast of 8.5, which is pretty good. Now, if let's say I wanted to say F3, is that enough letters? No, let me see here. This has a color contrast of 1.02. That's insufficient. That's not enough. So at this level, I would have to make sure that my colors are different enough. And there's some other things on here too. Text size, graphics, GUIs, so graphical user interface, object interfaces, those types of things. This WebAIM website allows you to assess the accessibility of a particular website and then provides articles and resources to help you improve some of those things that may be lower scoring. Okay, so when we get into the lab next week, you'll have some very simple HTML files to correct, and you're going to be able to do an amazing job. But tools like WebAIM or Wave, or even this Axe DevTools, which is a browser add-on, and I told you that I would show you what a browser extension is. I have the Grammarly extension, but you see these things up here, these small icons, those are extensions, and that just means it's a part of Chrome. It's already built in. And so if I click it, it's going to pull up and say, okay, I'm able to access this immediately. It's just like a direct link to it. So you can have a web accessibility browser add-on, or you can come to a website like webaim.org and do some checking that way. I hope you found this information beneficial, and I hope that it presses upon you the importance of creating accessible content, because accessible content is a gateway to create better experiences for all. And it is a way to ensure inclusivity, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to interact with and have a good experience with a particular website. Okay, so thank you so much for joining, and I will see you in the next video.